feel bad for men, and I know that's a crazy thing to open the video with, but I feel bad for men because the patriarchy's version of masculinity is usually just don't be a woman. And because of that, masculinity is so strict. It's so strict because anything that's not perceived as that kind of masculine is automatically seen as feminine because it has this very black and white mindset. And I feel like if you subscribe to the patriarchy's version of masculinity, it limits your self-expression to the point where you are stuck being the same as everybody else. And you're constantly looking over your shoulder for validation because you have to make sure that you are adhering to the kind of masculinity that other men agree is the correct version of masculinity. Because back in the day, masculinity included things like heels, it included things like makeup, it included things like wigs. I mean, if you look back even to the time of when George Washington was president, like you look back at old paintings and stuff, men are wearing heels, men are wearing fabulous outfits with all of these jewels and all that kinds of stuff on them, and men are wearing wigs and they're wearing makeup, and that's what masculinity used to look like at the time. And I feel like with something like masculinity or femininity, something that is a social construct and is ever evolving, to water it down to such a strict level of self-expression.
Hey man, here they go. Here they go. Here they go. Now, let's just go ahead and just knock this out the way first. Now, if we want to talk about the time where you have George Washington, let's just go ahead and look at the picture of George Washington. Does he mimic a female? Does he look like a female? No. Now, to some degree, she is correct, right? They did put on some makeup and they did have some heels. I won't disagree with them. I will not disagree with them at that time, right? But let's go ahead and let's dig a little bit deeper. What did the women look like, right, at that time? They look exactly like women. Go ahead, y'all go ahead and put the picture, right? Y'all see the picture. Y'all see the pictures. Y'all see the side by side. These look like warriors, right? Once again, a lot of guys dressed like this going out to war. A lot of guys dressed like this going out to war. But if you have somebody like that today, because you know, once again, October 31st is coming up. So you got Halloween, y'all can go out here and I'm pretty sure you'll find somebody that is dressed. I see somebody who's dressed in like George Washington or the time that George Washington was around. You would still say, you will not look at that and say, oh, well, you know what? He's dressing like a woman. Oh, you know, he's dressing like, you know, he's a part of that community. No, you wouldn't. You would say he is dressing like that time because that's what they dressed like. But that had nothing to do with involving themselves in cross-dressing, involving themselves in transgenderism, involving themselves in homosexuality. When you are seeing men today putting on heels, putting on a dress, putting on a purse, were men back in George Washington's time, were they putting on dresses? Were they putting on purses? No, they were not. No, they were not. They still had masculine aura. They still had a masculine frame. They still dressed like masculine men. That was their time and that was their era. But here we have women trying to push the narrative and make it seem as if, well, you know what? Hey, well, they did it then. You can do it now. No, because what are the intentions now? You putting on some mascara as a man. You're putting on some heels as a man. Right. And it's going to always go further. Then you're starting to paint your fingernails. Were they painting their fingernails back then? No, men were not painting their fingernails in the 1700s. You could say Egyptian time, right? That's what they were doing back then. But once again, they weren't coming off as homosexuals. You get what I'm saying? But here we are we're trying to have people trying to push a narrative here, trying to just make up stuff so they can go ahead and try to quote unquote open people's minds to this type of ideology. And once again, it's flawed. It's flawed. 2025 is not compared to 1789 and before that. If you really want to go that far, sis, let's dive deep into it. Were they accepting, you know, what we are accepting today? No, they're not. Right? No, they're not. So understand your times. But you're gonna try to find any way possible to come up with an excuse so y'all can go ahead and try to demonize men, you know, into thinking that, hey, well, listen, you know, it's bad to think otherwise, and it's bad to think that, hey, well, you know, you can't think like a woman, right? Because you will even see a comment where somebody said that men are raised not to be like women or to think like women. And somebody said that hits deep. People, what in the world are we talking about? What in the world are we talking about? Of course, of course, of course, you want to raise your man to be. You want to raise your boy to be a man. You don't want to raise your boy to be a girl. What are we doing? What are we talking about? But this is what you are going to see on TikTok, and this is just what they're trying to spread around, and they're trying to make it seem as if it's bad for a man to try to teach his son how to be a man. Oh no, he should have some feminine traits. I mean, shout out to Andrew Wilson, but he was going back and forth with a guy about this exact same thing. About, hey, well, a man is saying that, hey, well, parents shouldn't, teach the boys that they shouldn't cry. They should be able to express themselves. And Andrew Wilson had to check him, like, bro, like, dude, we are meant to be men, right? And men have to learn how to control their emotions. Women, they don't have to, but men, they have to, because you're going to end up raising men that you see who are going over here, going into these schools and doing what they have to do and creating all of these casualties. Those are men who are unstable. Pretty sure if they were a part of a football team, I'm pretty sure if they were actually a part of some programs, actually trying to lead something, if they had a kid or something, they would not be doing stuff like this. They would not be doing stuff like this because they would have something to fight for. But a lot of these people are coddled. A lot of these people are raised by these type of women that you see on the phone, and these little boys go out here and go, pop up some schools. These boys go out here and go rage. These boys don't know how to control the emotions because they want to have a feminine mindset, a feminine trait.
When we talk about heterosexual indoctrination harms children, basically, as men, speaking from a male point of view, growing up, or even now, when a boy child starts to cry about something, heterosexual men tend to stop crying so much, at least, or crying is for whatever is considered weak to heterosexual men. And that is a form of indoctrination that we should not be doing to our young boys.
No, aren't you just talking about masculinity versus femininity here?
Not really, no.
Well, they're not telling them to stop crying because they're heterosexuals. They're telling them to stop crying because it's not a masculine trait.
Whether it's a masculine trait or not, telling someone, a human being,
yeah,
humans experience emotions.
I agree.
When you tell a young boy, a child, to not express himself, that is harmful in the long run.
Well, I think I would disagree.
Damage kind of perfect.
I guess I would give you, here's my counter argument. I would argue that men are significantly stronger than women are. And because of that, they can hurt each other and women and children much, much worse than the opposite sex can. And there's a necessity there that they be able to control their emotional outbursts. And part of the idea of not crying and making public scenes and public emotional outbursts is a form of teaching men how to control their emotions for the good of society.
I mean, look, guys, once again, shout out to Andrew Wilson. I mean, and once again, the guy, he plays for both teams, right? The dude plays for both teams. So, of course, you already know where his ideology is going to be coming from, right? And this is the issue that we have, right? This is the issue that we have, and this is why you need to continue to have the fathers in the household. Because you don't want to raise little boys like this, right? You don't want to raise women who are constantly on the pole every single day.
Leaves a hollow place in the human soul, because we have to be creative. All humans are born to create something or another. They want to contribute, and to contribute is to create. And I feel that, and I'm not just talking about art, I'm talking about a bunch of different things. I mean, you can be a welder and create, like stuff like something like that, just contributing. We are a social species. And so for something like the patriarchy's version of masculinity to come about and to create such a small box for men to fit in, to the point where if they step outside that box a little bit, they're almost immediately cast out of connecting with other human beings. And also because they limit themselves to valuing the connection of only half the population. You're only allowed to value other men's opinion. Valuing a woman's opinion makes you a woman or makes you feminine. That's insane. You can't even connect with your entire species, except you limit the connection you have to the other half of the species, a woman, to something very simple, sex. And so if you are not connecting with the other half of the species in the way that your half of the species deems appropriate, then you're cast out of that half, and also you don't value the other half, so you are truly left alone. And then you have these people who are incels and red pill people who are just creating this very hateful manosphere of people who are truly lonely because they cannot gain the validation of one half of the population, and they are not allowed to be validated by the other half of the population, except for on certain conditions. You are creating a space where you have to fit into this tiny little box, and if you don't fit into it in the right way, you only have like once or twice to slip up before you're just left alone. And so all of these brash actions and all of these constantly looking over the shoulder for other guys' validation is just it's sad to me, because you're in this situation where your lack of value for simple things like emotion, and let me just remind you that emotion is something we're born with. Babies laugh and cry. Those are like the two things they do. We're born with emotion inherently, and it's not fair, because it's not something that you chose to grow up in a world where they tell you that one of the two things that you're born doing is wrong to do. Like, men aren't allowed to cry. Babies laugh and they cry, and men aren't allowed to cry, and that is like the first thing you do when you're born. What? It's basic human instinct to do things like cry and laugh. And we're telling the patriarchy's telling half the population you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to express a basic human instinct. Yeah, but then it's also kind of like, I also can't really feel bad for men, because y'all are the ones upholding this stuff. If enough men valued the opinion of women to listen to us and to understand when we tell you, hey, you're putting yourself in this box. Like, yes, other men say you have to be this way, but also explore for yourself and decide whether or not you can actually exist outside of that tiny little box of masculinity that the world has created. If you don't do enough self-exploration and exploration of the world, then you won't realize that, yes, there are spaces for men who are more emotional. Yes, there are spaces for soft men.
I mean, once again, people, this is where they just come up with stuff. Just going back to what she was saying, that, hey, well, listen, any man who wants to take advice from a woman somehow, some way, now all of a sudden they're feminine. Ma'am, since when, right? You're saying that we don't even want to take women's advice. We don't want to hear women out. Since when? Where are you getting that from? What type of men are you dealing with that don't even want to take advice from women? That don't want to take advice from their mothers, from their grandmothers, from their friends? Once again, and I guess she's going to say that, well, there are some guys. Prove it. From my understanding, a bunch of guys are willing to take advice from women, especially if they are close to them, right? But the sad thing about it is we have women who are like you, who try to push who try to push this rhetoric, right? Who try to push these false narratives, and then you're trying to make it seem as if, hey, well, listen, I'm pushing out something that's good. This is something that men should receive, and men are listening to this, and they're like, bro, this don't make sense. Right? This don't make sense. What you're trying to do is you're trying to sissify a lot of these boys. They try to sissify them. They're telling them it's okay to cry. I mean, y'all saw the guy. I mean, he's saying that, y'all shouldn't be able to tell a man what to do, and y'all should be able to tell a little boy he shouldn't cry. But then when you do that, you literally raise that very man that y'all saw arguing with Andrew Wilson. He couldn't even control his emotions. And then he says that, hey, well, you know what? Yeah, because you got me feeling some type of way. Sir, you don't even know how to, you just literally proved this point. You literally just proved this point, right? But when you allow these people to just argue and talk, this is what you're going to get. But y'all guys, let me know down below, man. What do y'all guys think? Do me a huge favor, leave me a like, leave me a comment, subscribe to the channel.